I'm pretty excited about what we're creating at Hackberry Farm. Already the property has a great base for wildlife. For example, right here in this corner, even though it's not apparent on this map, this is actually a shallow water wetland. And the water at the deepest, maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 feet. It's not real deep at all. I can wear rubber boots and wade around in it all day long. And it was built by the previous owner, who is my brother, and as a duck marsh, duck habitat. And so we're going to continue using it for duck habitat and really have strategies to drain the water when we need to let vegetation grow back in it, and put water back in it when we need to, so that ducks and other waterfowl and shorebirds and frogs and crawfish and everything else can utilize it. And my brother also had another smaller wetland built here. Crazy thing about this one is, of all the water on the property, this place here has a lot of beaver activity for whatever reason. And then of course, on the property, there's already a lot of water because the creek runs through it on this side, and then the creek runs through it on this side. And so both these are seasonal creeks. This main creek runs pretty good most of the winter. And then this side creek really only runs when we get some rain. But the crazy thing about this creek here is this serves as a portal, because I see it all the time, where river otters will come from somewhere else, swim up the creek, and then they'll cross over this little weir dam here that we've built, and they'll get into the wetlands where they'll feed on crawfish and small slugs and whatever else they can find. And so that leaves us with the rest of the property. Well, already my house is going to be right here. Already we've built about a 2-acre pond that's going to serve as a true reservoir, that we can use the water from this pond to be able to move downstream and put it in the duck marsh when we need to. And so the rest of the property is really going to be a catch-all for wildlife habitat. For example, this whole area here, I'm going to reclaim from being a monocultural hayfield, and I will end up planting a variety of native grasses here that are adapted to the soil and adapted to the climate and adapted to the area. Stuff that's really supposed to natively grow here is going to once again grow in this bottom. And this just diversity of plant and forb species will go a long way for attracting songbirds, bugs, insects of all kinds, small animals like possums, raccoons, rabbits, everything else. And even though we already have deer on the property, deer will be more attracted to this area because it won't be, you know, during the winter after the farmer got the last hay cutting out, it just was pretty much bare ground. It had cover, dead vegetative cover, but still had very little cover. But deer would still utilize this when they could. And on the subject of deer, I'm a big proponent of food plots, and so along these margins, we'll grow this in perennial or annual food plots like winter wheat and other cereal grains that are easy to grow, and that deer will be attracted to the green of it. So back to the wetlands. Along the margins of this wetland, I've got my son, who's a sophomore in high school. He's in the process of building me some wood duck boxes, so maybe we can get wood ducks to start nesting in this area. Along the creek and down in the southeast corner of my property, there's still a lot of tree cover. Now, I've looked at some historic aerial photos, and this thing has been a farm for a long time. This land's been in my family for a few decades, so beyond that, I'm almost certain at some point, because so much of this is bottom land, a lot of this whole thing was probably grown up in trees at some point. Well, now the trees, as you can see, are relegated to along the creek on both sides, and then a little bit up in here, and then a little bit north. And so one of the things I'm really excited about that I'll end up doing is I'm going to do a little bit of hardwood reclamation on this property. And so probably from about right here to right here in this little skinny open area, I'm going to go back and plant some native pecan trees for a couple of reasons. One, I think they're beautiful. Number two, they're adapted to the soil. Number three, it's going to provide good wildlife habitat. I've already got a number of native pecan trees on the property, but that'll just add to it. And so hopefully in a few years, the understory will start to come back in this area, and then we'll end up extending this hardwood habitat up a little further up into this area. And so I'm pretty excited about that. So that kind of leaves us a couple areas undeveloped so far, but I've got a plan for that as well. As you can see, there's a little natural dividing line right here. That's a road, a field road that comes in and would cross the creek and get over into the hay fields. So it kind of gives me the north field and the south field beyond that. So I'm going to keep that as a dividing line. This north field, I think the plan is to plant some sort of annual crop that will not only provide food for wildlife, but will also provide a great backdrop for photos. So my thought in this area is to either grow a crop like milo that will produce a lot of grain and spill a lot of grain in the fall, or even something like the sunflowers. And that way, you'd have a great place for birds, a great place to photograph birds on the big sunflower stalks, and it'd just be a really photogenic area. So right now my big question mark is what to do with this area. I'm not quite sure yet. I've got some plans on part of this area that I'm going to hold off for now and surprise you with that later. But the rest of this, not really sure. I've thought everything from tulips, which believe it or not grow good in Texas, to maybe growing a fruit orchard, have some fruit trees up in here, or maybe just make an extension of this other field where I grow milo or sunflowers or something else up in this area. And so after that, I've still got some spaces up here closer to the house that I'll do something with. And I'm thinking most likely this area is going to be for wildflowers. That'll be good for pollinators like bees. I plan to keep a few honeybees at the place, so that'll be a good place for pollinators. And it'll be a great view to be able to see from my front porch, to look to the north over my pollinator field into my native grass field and watch ducks spill into this wetland to the north. So we've got a pretty good plan for the property. I think it's going to be nice when we get done. We've still got a lot of work to do. We're a couple of weeks away from moving into the house, but it's coming along pretty fast. And when all this is said and done, this is going to be a great location for wildlife photography.